Well, I'll probably regret buying this one, but I couldn't pass up the good deal. So this was up for $3,000 on Facebook Marketplace. I offered $22. The guy said come grab it. So I got this thing for $2,200. So this machine is called Massimo 800 4x4 UTV. They've got the crappy Piston engine in it, unfortunately. They're typically sold at like Fleet Farm, Lowe's now sells them. So when you first walk in, you see these displayed. And typically they go for like $9,000 to $12,000 brand new, which is crazy, almost criminal. On the website, these are labeled as assembled in the USA. Assembled meaning put together in the USA, not built in the USA. So down in Texas, they get these parts, I'm suspecting from China, and then they assemble the parts together and make the Massimo 800 UTV. And I think that kind of throws people off. I think people think it's made in the USA, but it's actually assembled in the USA. So the parts are not actually made in the USA. But anyway, that's kind of why the quality on these is a little sketch. And I've seen a lot of these machines break down well before 1,000 miles. And that's typically why they only offer a warranty of 1 year. So this one, the story goes, is that the seller bought it from a guy, I think he said with 25 miles on it. He bought it for $6,000. And he was already having problems at 25 miles. So he figured out that the crank position sensor was bad. He replaced that. He said it ran good. Never had an issue with it up until whatever we have for miles now. I think it's 600 miles. So now he said he was riding it down his driveway and the temp light came on and this thing was overheating. So he shut it off right away and started investigating. He said it would continue to overheat every time he drove it after a couple minutes. So he doesn't know what's going on with it. He tried to bleed the system. He tried different sensors. He's tried pretty much everything besides tearing apart the engine to figure this thing out. He was a mechanic back in the day, so he does know what he's talking about. But he could not figure it out, and that's why he's selling it cheap. So today's goal is to figure out the overheating problem. It does start up, but it sounds pretty rough. Alright, it's not a bad looking machine from the outside at all. It's pretty sharp looking, to be honest. It's got the windshield, mirrors, tires are nice, wheels are nice, all the lights, blinkers, winch. So it's not too bad. There's a sticker, assembled in the USA. Seats move forward and back. Seat belts. Here are the blinkers, brights, horn, diff lock, 4-wheel drive switch, battery voltage. There's the winch control. I mean, it's not bad. Cup holders right down there. Got the toolkit. They've got low, high, neutral, reverse. You can see 777 miles. I thought it was 600 something. But you can see there's a clock, RPM, mile per hour, gas, full and empty, and then you've got the diff lock and 4-wheel drive. And then you've got your neutral, park, blinkers, everything down there. So there are the blinkers. Those are working. Brights. And then you've got the horn. There's the horn. Let's see if the lights are working. Yep, lights are working. Let's see if the winch works. Yep, that works. Alright, everything's working. So let's see if she fires up here. Foot on the brake. Ooh, that does not sound good. Alright, she fired up. We're going to turn it off right away. But as you can see, it does run. Starting it kind of sounded like the crank there for a sec. That was not good. Didn't sound like that when I first bought it. He must have had it warmed up. See, it's blowing out white smoke right here. Smells pretty sweet too. That might be coolant burning. I don't want to run it too long. Temp light didn't come on yet, but you could see it was puffing out white smoke. So that's not good. We had the parking brake on, that's why it was sounding rough. But yeah, it runs, it's just really, really rough. Let's just see if it starts easier now. Alright. Yeah, that's quite a bit of white smoke. I don't like that. Alright, turn that off. We're not going to run it any more than that. Let's get this thing in the garage. It's starting to rain here, and we'll check everything over. Alright, got this thing in the garage. It's 100% burning coolant. It kind of smells like maple syrup or honey. Very sweet smell coming out of the exhaust. So I know it's burning coolant, but why is it burning coolant? And that's probably the reason it's overheating as well. So if we take off the hood here, I believe that gives us access to the radiator here. Yep. All right. Let's see what that looks like. Holy, yeah. Pressure was definitely building up in there. Wow, that just got all over me. Well, that would be our problem right there. Building pressure in the radiator, and I'm guessing it's not circulating throughout the system, cooling this thing down. Holy. We only ran it for a couple seconds. That should not be happening. So, yeah, it's building pressure from somewhere. All right, we can get these seats out. So it looks like there's 2 bolts down there. Little 8mm bolts. I think that's keeping the seat on, which is kind of crazy. Get those off of there. Yep. There we go. Now we've got a panel here that can come off. It looks like with 2 screws, and same with that one. We've got access to the engine now. That wasn't too bad. There's where the spark plug is. And the spark plug is over here on that side. Right there, so we can access everything we need to access here. I might take off the bed here in a little bit if it's hard to work with, but right now I'm just looking for any coolant leaks from the head. Anything that might indicate it's burning coolant. Doesn't look like anything on that cylinder. Oh, there's a little moisture down here. I see a little moisture down here. That might be... See that? See that crusty stuff right there? That's coolant. So I'm pretty sure this head gasket is blown right here. See that? There's coolant and moisture getting by down here. Look at, there's dry coolant there too. So that's definitely leaking coolant out of this cylinder. A million screws later, I think we can take off the bed. And this rack can come off too, but for now, we're good to go. So now we can get to the valve cover on this side as well. All right, now we've got easy access to everything, it looks like. So, let's start by checking that oil. We'll see if that's milky here. The seller said he checked it and it wasn't milky. Let's see what it looks like now. Yeah, that's really weird. It's not milky. I don't get how that cannot be milky. If coolant is burning off, you'd think that would be milky. But maybe not. Interesting. So, oil looks pretty good. We'll test the level and see if it was low in oil. Alright, we'll check the level. Make sure there's enough oil in there. I don't think the guy would drain it and then fill it back up. He seemed pretty honest. Alright, let's see. As you can see, oil is at the top mark. So, oil level was good. So hopefully the crank is still fine. It's really weird that the oil is not milky. That's throwing me off kinda. Alright, what we're gonna do is quick start it up and just see if we can see it leaking out of the cylinder here. Yep, look at this. That's coolant. So that head gasket is definitely leaking. Let's see what the spark plug looks like. So typically when a plug is burning coolant off, it'll be pretty white. Doesn't look that white. Ah, on that side it is. It's not that wet either. You'd think it would be much wetter than that. It's not soaked in coolant or anything. Let's see here. Just try to start this thing back up. See if coolant puffs out of there. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah. You guys could see it was popping coolant out of here. So coolant is definitely in the cylinder somehow and not leaking into the crankcase, which is good. So the rings must be really tight to keep that coolant in that cylinder. It's just blowing a bunch of coolant. So that rag will be wet when we... There's compression. Yeah, you can see it's wet with coolant there. Yep. Let's get a compression reading. And this is technically cylinder 2. If you listen closely, you can actually kind of hear like a whistle sound, like air escaping. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but it sounds like air is escaping from the head gasket area. Alright, I'm curious to see what compression is at. So let's get our gauge in here and test that. And then we'll do the other cylinder and compare it. Alright. Alright, we're at 120 with the throttle open. And I'm guessing that's with a decompression mechanism, so that's pretty good. We'll compare it to the other cylinder to make sure. Alright, here's cylinder number 1. Try to get that spark plug out. Let's see if coolant's blowing out of here too. Let's see if I can get in here. Oh, it's kind of tricky. That one's pretty white. Holy cow. Look at that one. That's extremely white. Well, that's not a good sign. Huh. I wonder if that one's blowing coolant too. Let's see. I don't see anything. Definitely not as much as the other one. Either cylinder. Let's see if I put a rag in there. That might be coolant too, coming out of there. Just to make sure. The throttle open. Now on the other cylinder we got 120, so we're looking for right around 120 on this one as well. Throttle open. That one's like 135, so a little better. So that could be a couple of reasons. The other cylinder, the second one we did the first time, that has a head gasket that is blown, most likely. So that can lower compression. Also, the rings are probably washed out from the coolant being in there, so that's another reason why compression could be lower than the first cylinder here. But it seems like compression is pretty good in both. And head gaskets typically blow if the machine overheats. It can expand that metal material and cause it to leak out. It can also leak out from just being old. Could also leak out from pressure building up in the engine. So it could be sucking air in from somewhere and building up pressure, like a cracked head. Other than that, it would just be failure of installation. So I don't think that happened. All right, let's see if pressure was being built up. Afraid to open it again. All right. See, it lost a lot of coolant there. But I will turn this thing over. I want to see if any coolant comes out. First, we're going to put the plug in the first cylinder, the one that's further back on the machine, and we'll see if it builds up pressure. If it doesn't, typically that means that the rear head gasket is not blown, and then we'll put the plug in the front cylinder, the second cylinder, and try it again. And I'm thinking it's going to build up pressure with the plug in that cylinder. We've got the plug in the first cylinder. Let's see if coolant blows out of here. Not seeing anything. Oh, there we go, yep. See what's bubbling? So it's definitely building pressure. See that? All right, let's move the plug to the second cylinder. All right, plug is in. Let's see what the heck happens. Oh yeah. You can see the coolant just pour out of there. That's a lot of pressure. So, you can definitely see the head gasket leak is way worse on the second cylinder than it is the first cylinder. But I think both head gaskets are blown. All right, now that we know there's a head gasket leak, we can start tearing this thing down. Oh man. Alright, everything looks good in there. You can see the cam chain's nice and tight. I mean, it should be. There's only 700 miles on it. But we can check the valves and the timing too. So we can check the timing and the valves, make sure that wasn't the culprit of the overheating. A lot of times if timing becomes off, the machine can overheat faster and it could cause the head gasket failure. So let's check timing on cylinder number 2. And to do that, what we're going to do is just take a wrench and line up these two lines with the surface of the head, and then we'll check for a line down below by the crank position sensor. Okay, and turn it. Oh. We might be able to just do it by starting the machine here. pretty close right there. There we go. See if the valves are open. No, they're closed, so we have to go one more revolution. A little too far. Right there. See, now the valves are open. So we know we're good to go. And by valves open, I mean the distance between the valve and the rocker is open, not the actual valve. The valves are closed actually, but the gap is open here. As you can see, the line right here is parallel to the surface of the head. And if you take that gasket away, you can see the other line right there. It's kind of faint, but you can see it. That's parallel to the surface of the head. All right, the crank position sensor is right there. Oh, that was really loose. Why was that so loose? So right there, and you can see the two. Kind of hard to see. There we go. There's a visible 2. So timing on cylinder number 2 is perfect. All right, so according to the manual, the intake valves are going to be set to 3 to 5 thousandths of an inch, and the exhaust is going to be, what is that, 5 to 6 thousandths. So let's check them. See if any of them are tight. We'll start at 5 thousandths on the intake here. That one slid right in. Perfect. Now we're going to bump it up to 6 thousandths of an inch. Let's see. Perfect. Perfect. So valves all check out. Clearance is spot on. All right, moving on to cylinder 1. Have to touch it. So we'll check timing on this one as well. Make sure that's good. Valve cover looks good. The cam chain, that's nice and tight. Looking good. All right, now let's turn over the engine. Try to get those timing marks lined up. Right there, let's see if those are all tight, so we have to go one more revolution. All right, so we've got our cam set up here. And if I zoom in, maybe you guys can see it, maybe not. So there it is, you can see that line's parallel, and that line is not quite parallel. But if you look down here, you can see the 1, or it kind of looks like an L, that's perfectly in the window. But we're not perfect on here. So we're like 1 tooth off, it looks like. I don't think that little bit would cause it to overheat, but it kind of looks like we're 1 tooth off. We'll have to make sure we're perfect on reassembly. 3 to 5 on the intake. and then you're going to be 5 to 7 on the exhaust. 5 fit in there. 5 fit in there. Let's do 5 on here. Perfect. That one's a little tight. 3/1000. Yeah, 3/1000 fits, but that one was definitely tight. So on reassembly, we'll have to adjust that exhaust valve. All right, start taking everything off of here. That loose. We gotta get the intakes off. Huh, that was loose too. I wonder if this guy had this whole thing apart. All right, there's no thermostat in that one. It must be on the other side over here. I'm thinking it must be over here. Not seeing one over there either. That is really strange. So I don't know if the guy took out the thermostat to test it and never put it back in, but there's no thermostat anywhere on this thing. Alright, so the tensioner for the cam chain is right down here. Alright, there's a little better look at the tensioner here. Let's get that bolt out. Alright. Smells pretty burnt. We got that nut off. Cam sprocket. take out as well. These two with Allen heads. Oh man. You don't want to strip those out. That would be horrible. Those are torqued down pretty good. Torqued down pretty good. These hold the cylinder on as well. There we go. That one was pretty loose actually. Why was that loose? This head should come off there. Whoa. Came off easy. Oh yeah, there's a lot of carbon in there. Take a look. Ooh, that looks a little rough. You can see the head gasket right here. It's really worn down. We're hoping that the cylinder and the crank is fine here. Get our guide out. Alright. Cam chain looks to be in good condition. Arrow's the correct way towards the exhaust side. Alright, now we can get this cylinder out. New brass punch here. Let's give that a shot. It's coming. Alright, I'm worried about the crank. So we're going to try to get that piston off and check the rod bearing for the crank. Hopefully that's good, because I really don't want to tear this whole thing down. Alright, these pistons barely come up over the base gasket there. So we're going to try to tuck some paper towel down there and get this piston off, but it's a pain in the butt. Pins out. There we go. There's the piston. All right. Oh yeah, that's nice and tight. Wiggle side to side. Absolutely zero up and down. Oh, thank God. So rod bearing is good on that crank. Hopefully the rod bearing will be good on the other one as well. All right, on to cylinder number 1. We're gonna get the cam chain tensioner off first. Looks good. Oh yeah. There we go. Remember, we don't want to strip these ones out, otherwise they're kind of screwed. The whole head is popping off of here. There we go. Oh, there's a lot of coolant in there. Wow. Double pins out. That's what we're looking at right now. You can see a bunch of coolant in there. Not looking too good. So arrow on this one is going to be facing the intake, it looks like. So it's facing the exhaust on the front of the engine, not on the back over here. So a little bit confusing, but it's up here. There's really not a great place to pound. I want to pound right there. It'll come off here. Piston looks a little rusty. Alright, that's what that looks like. So let's get this piston off and check that rod bearing. Fingers crossed it's good. Alright, we got the circlip out already. Push that pin through. It's coming. There we go. Alright, here we go. A little side to side, zero up and down. Whew, we lucked out there. It's really good in there. All right, we have our cylinder number 2, cylinder number 1 over here, all labeled and set up over here. So let's take a look at all the parts, make sure there's no cracks or anything like that that could have caused this thing to overheat. This is the head gasket from cylinder number 2. So this is the one that had the bad leak. That's what the head gasket looked like. Here's the piston. You can see all the rings are free. Looks pretty good. Lots of carbon on the piston. Check for cracks, no cracks in the piston at all. Here is the cylinder. Take a flashlight and look at this. Make sure we don't have any scratches or cracks. That's actually a pretty thick cylinder. And I'm looking right now. Get a flashlight out in this cylinder, and this is the one that would be cracked. Yeah, you can still see the cross hatches. Looks really good actually. And here's the head. We know the valves were not bent or anything because compression was good. Just a lot of carbon on those. Everything looks good there too. So that all checks out. Take that piston and check the ring gap. So take the first ring off. Let's see if there's any markings on this piston here. So there is a beveled end. So that was pointing the right way. The beveled end is facing up on the ring. So when we reassemble it, the beveled end goes up. Alright. Wow, ring gap looks pretty good. A little bit bigger. Yep, 17 thousandths for the ring gap, which is on the bigger end, but still not bad. And then the second ring, we'll quick measure since we have it off. Keep the orientation the correct way. But there's a bevel on it, and the bevel faces down. So, let's measure the ring gap on this one. Again, it's pretty good. Right there. Way better than I expected. Cylinder 1. That cleaned out a little bit. So this one actually has some wear on it. It's like a darker surface on the cylinder there. I believe that's beginning to wear through the coating. That might come off with a Scotch-Brite pad. We'll quick check. That'll come off of there. Yep, that's coming off. Luckily. Where the cylinder cracks. Yeah, that looks good. No cracks in that cylinder. Here's the head gasket from it. And then we've got the head. You also want to check the heads for cracks along the ports here. Make sure there's no cracking. That one's just really carboned up. And here is the piston. No cracking on that. See what we're at. Looks about the same as the other one. 17 thousandths for that ring. And then we've got the second ring. So non-beveled, faces up. And that ring gap looks good too. So surprisingly, the piston looks good, the rings look good, cylinder and piston all look good. Alright, so as of right now, everything checks out. The cylinders, the pistons, the head. We want to find out why this thing was overheating. So a couple different things that come to mind. It looks like it was missing the thermostats. That's one thing. I'm not sure. I can't find the exact diagram for this machine. I might have to buy a manual from eBay. It's the HS800, if you guys want to look it up. I tried to look it up. All it comes back with is one similar, but not the same. And then the other thing we can check is the water pump. So maybe the water pump stopped working. The water pump is over on the side over here. And I'm guessing that's a pretty common failure point. It's right underneath that cover right here. So we can get to that and spin the water pump. And if the chains move, the cam chains, we know that the water pump is connected and not stripped out. A lot of times they use plastic gears in there and they can strip out. So let's check that. Also, what could have contributed to the heating up is the one tooth off on the timing. All right, coolant started pouring out, so we're draining that. We got most of the water pump cover off. We're just getting the last bolt off here. There's the water pump impeller. Oh shoot. That's the problem. Look, it's not grabbing anything. Darn. See, that should be moving the cam chain. Huh. So that's why this thing was overheating. Wow. Well, that sucks. Because it looks like now we have to take the engine out anyway. Oh, what a pain in the butt. Why did it have to be the water pump? Alright, we actually got this part of the water pump out through there. I don't think that was supposed to come out of there. But you can see that it's held on by this pin. Right there. There's the pin. And that's supposed to turn the gear inside the engine there. So let's just see if we can take a flashlight and see if that's stripped out in there. So the gear that this gear goes to, it's actually not stripped out in there. I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to see, kind of a weird angle, but there's a gear up in there. You can kind of see it's black right there. Let's see if I can zoom in. You can see it's up in that corner there. See, that's not even stripped out. That rotates that gear up there. See that? You can see the teeth coming down. That's not stripped out. That rotates freely in there. So that's not grabbing something inside the engine. So I'm hoping that something, that gear, is behind the clutch cover. But that's wishful thinking. Alright, I think we can take the cover off. Doesn't appear like it. Might have to take off the flywheel. Take a closer look. Stator looks good. Yeah, I think you gotta split the case. So engine, I think, has to come out. Darn. That is a big bummer. Well, we tried. So I think next video we're gonna take the engine out. I'm not doing it tonight. I've been working on this thing all day. So we'll take the engine out next video, tear it apart, and rebuild this thing. So that's the goal. But I'm pretty sure that's the culprit. Water pump failed, wasn't pumping fluid throughout the system, got hot, and then it blew out those head gaskets. That's my theory. And it seems like the water pumps fail on these pretty frequently. So hopefully it doesn't happen again once we rebuild it. So luckily we got this thing for $2,200, otherwise this probably wouldn't be worth it. But because it's so cheap and we don't have a lot of money invested, it shouldn't be too bad taking the engine out. So hopefully you guys enjoy picking this thing up for $2,200, diagnosing it, tearing it down, and finding the culprit of the overheating problem. Always interesting tearing these cheap UTVs apart. You never know what you're gonna find with these cheap engines. But at least this one wasn't grenaded like the other one, and most of the parts are still good on it. So we shouldn't have to spend a whole lot to get this thing up and running next video. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing. Stay tuned for next video, and until next time, we are out.